Hello, everyone. Well, welcome to a breaking news episode of Who the Hell Asked. And it's not a good kind of breaking news like we typically have when we do these separate episodes. Slade.
No, this is probably some of the worst news of the entire year. In fact, I have it as number one right now. But I mean, there's been a lot of terrible stuff happen this news. But without any further ado, let's get into it. Unity rolled out a new pricing model today.
That's right. So, effective January 1st, 2024, we'll introduce a new Unity runtime fee that's based on game installs. We will also add cloud-based asset storage, Unity DevOps tools, and AI at runtime at no extra cost to the Unity subscription plans. So yeah, the threshold for installs and revenue. Games qualify for the Unity runtime fee after two criteria have been met. Number one, the game has passed a minimum revenue threshold in the last 12 months. And number two, the game has passed a minimum lifetime install count. And so for Unity Personal and Plus, games that have made $200,000 or more in the last 12 months and have at least 200,000 lifetime game installs, and for the Unity Pro and Enterprise tiers, games that have made $1 million or more in the last 12 months and have at least 1 million lifetime game installs. And these runtime thresholds, if you meet them, for the Personal and Plus tiers, it is 20 cents per install. For Unity Pro, it's anywhere from 15 cents install at the lower end to 2 cents per install at the higher end of revenue. And for Enterprise, it's 0.125 cents per install at the lower end and 1 cent per install at the higher end. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so we have a lot of developers and heads of very well-known indie studios obviously speaking out against this frankly absurd and horrifically greedy price increase. I mean, the fact that I don't think any other platform has a fee per install
inclusion.
This is literally just Unity now.
Yes. So
very
Aggro
disgusting.
Crab.
We have plenty of examples to go over.
Yeah, so Aggro Crab is a big one that Slade discovered. And they mentioned something about Game Pass, which is huge because Game Pass not only affects this, but also PlayStation Plus. Yeah, so guess who has a highly anticipated game coming to Xbox Game Pass in 2024? That's right, us and a lot of other developers. That means another Crab's Treasure will be free to install for the 25 million Game Pass subscribers. If a fraction of those users download our game, Unity could take a fee that puts an enormous dent in our incomes and threatens the sustainability of our business. And that's before we even think about sales on other platforms or pirated installs, which is a big talking point I've seen people talk about, the pirated installs, or even multiple installs by the same user, installing, uninstalling to save space, reinstalling when you have the space back. It's fucking terrible. The dev even says, I fucking hate it here. I agree. I agree with Aggro Crab. I fucking hate it here. Oh, dear God.
Dear God, indeed. And Byron and I got a list of games that were all developed using the Unity engine, and there are some ginormous hitters here.
Yes.
I'm going to name three off the top of my head, for example. The biggest three I can think of are Hollow Knight and its sequel, Among Us, Genshin Impact.
Yeah, those are some big ones. Those are some of the games that probably will be affected. Some of these indie games probably won't be too affected because, they're not making like $200,000 in 12 months, but it still fucking sucks, especially for newer games like Slade mentioned. Hollow Knight, Silksong, or even some of the big games, Among Us, Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Go, by the way. That's a big one.
That's a ginormous one.
Yeah,
I can't believe I let that out.
That's a huge one. VR chat. That's another
Angry Birds.
Angry Birds. That's a big one. We talked about them. The shit show. But yeah, those are just some of the bigger games. Beat Saber. That's another big one. Bloons TD6. That's another big one. Marvel Snap. It's not on this list, but that's a big game that has Unity support.
But you all get the picture at this point.
Yeah.
So it's not just people who download the game that causes this fee to roll up on developers.
Oh, no.
It's also demos of the game.
Yep.
It's also updates made to the game.
Yep.
It's also people who install the game to multiple devices.
Yep.
Via like Steam library or something like that.
Yeah, it's
or Game Pass.
Bundles are at risk. Giveaways are at risk. DRM-free versions are potentially at risk. It's a shit show. It's a shit show all around. And we have a couple more notes on this from Steven Totillo on some clarifications. Yes, as Slade mentioned, if somebody installs it and reinstalls it, that's 2 installs. That's 2 charges. Same if they install on 2 devices. However, charity games, charity bundles are exempted from the fees. So that's good. But, still not great in the entire grand scheme of things like the other 2 things, of course.
No, it's absolutely horrible. To put in context how bad, how freakishly horrible the situation is, even publishers want no association with Unity now. We have a tweet here from Devolver Digital and lots of responses to it.
Yep.
Definitely include what engine you're using in game pitches. It's important information.
Yeah.
There's a reason why that tweet came out today.
Well, yeah, because this info came out today, yeah. And, like, Devolver typically are, they like to sometimes poke, prod, troll, but I don't think this is a troll at this point.
Yeah, and this also means we're probably going to see, less outsourcing of, some major IP to smaller studios based on what engines they're using.
Yeah.
Fantastic example of that. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, developed by Ilka Studios, made in the Unity engine. You'd think if this pricing model was around then, Nintendo and Game Freak and the Pokemon Company probably would not have okayed the project. Like, actually.
Yeah.
Like, you have to think about, like, just how many games, like, are made in Unity. Like I said, Byron and I have a ginormous list. We went over some of the largest games. We didn't go over all the games in there, because obviously there's a lot. Like,
yeah, like, we could name some, like, the Pac-Man World remake, Freedom Planet 2, Crab Game, our favorite video game of all time, Slade, Nickelodeon, All-Star Brawl, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, Fall Guys, my 2020 Game of the Year. That's a big one. The Ori games, Phasmophobia, the Mystery Dungeon remake, Dr. Mario World, COD Mobile, Bug Fables.
Yeah, the list goes on and on and on. And we have a slew of developers coming out speaking against the game. Here from Over the Moon Studios. Hey, Unity, our game The Fall was on Epic Games as a free game, and I was quite happy to sell them the rights for peanuts, and the game was installed 7 million fucking times. Literally their own words. How do you propose this will work? I'd owe you more money than I've made in my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's insane.
Oh, yeah, the list goes on. So, a developer by the name of Forrest, who's with Inner Sloth Studios.
Yeah.
I bet Steam, Epic, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft will love having waves of developers pulling their games from their subscription services.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, no matter which way you slice at it, this is an absolute disaster for the gaming industry as a whole. Like,
yeah, like, let me pull up another couple of examples for you, Slade. We have here from Henry Hoffman, a BAFTA-winning game designer for Newly Fangled Games, he says, if you buy our Unity game, please don't install it. Demos also count. Don't install this demo. You'll literally bankrupt me.
I think, like, in his replies, he's also joking, like, here, I'll just put a playthrough of the game on my channel or something, and you can all watch it.
Yeah, we can Skype. I'll share my screen, and you tell me what to do. Or Ralph Barbagallo of the Xenotilt Hostile Pinball. This Unity billing plan is absolutely insane. Putting Demon's Tilt on Game Pass or EGS for a free week would bankrupt us with this model.
Yeah, absolute yikes. Absolute yikes. And you know what? There's always more context. There's always some shady stuff going on behind the scenes. Don't worry, we found it. Tweet from Brandon Sheffield here. Unity Plus is killed. Unity personnel is no longer able to use offline. The calculation of installs can change. And yes, individual itch installs, even if you already have the game count as installs, which bad actors can weaponize. Also, and this is the big part, look who sold stock last week.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Good Old John Riccitello. Fucking, for those who don't know, I think we covered him before on the show with his statement that developers are fucking idiots.
Yep, sold over 50,000 shares.
Over the past year. Over the past
year. Sold 2,000 just this last week. And what do you know? Unity CEO right there.
Yeah.
So, he had to know what kind of reaction that this was going to drive. This is insider trading. Just straight simple. This is insider trading. It's illegal.
Yeah, even a commenter, Da Witcher, commented, isn't that a crime? I mean, wasn't Yuji Naka imprisoned for insider trading?
Yeah, this is essentially what happened with Yuji Naka. Like, no, there's no, like, ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, this is such a disgusting situation. And, Byron, let's go ahead and talk about, like, the long-term effects. What impact is this going to have on the gaming industry as a whole?
Man, you're probably going to see developers attempt to shift away from Unity and go to other engines, Unreal Engine, Godot, RPG Maker, etc. And I've seen some theories fly around that maybe Unity are doing this because they're in financial worry, that it's not looking good in terms of financials. So, like that's my thoughts. They did acquire like some like company like that we covered like I think a year or so ago for like a couple billion.
Yeah,
so maybe that didn't help. But yeah, no, like, and games that are like very popular, maybe the companies will just fucking eat it because they kind of have to, but it will make future games be like, we're gonna side-eye Unity and probably not use it, maybe make our own engine, or use like Unreal, Godot, RPG Maker, etc., depending on like what type of game, whether it's 2D game or 3D game.
But ultimately, this is just tragic because, like, Unity, for all intents and purposes, is the go-to engine for pretty much every new developer on the block in indie studios.
Yeah, because it's cheaper to get the license for than Unreal. It's less resource intensive, and for 3D, it's probably the best for indie studios. Obviously, for 2D, there's a bigger variety. A lot more competition. Like I mentioned earlier, Godot, RPG Maker, etc. Like, and Godot is getting better with 3D games, from what I've heard. So maybe that will become a competitor in the 3D space as well. But and obviously, like you said, Slade, why would companies want to lease out their engines to other companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the Pokemon games were the first example I could think of, but like, we have plenty of situations where a company will lease out an IP to a company. But like now, if they're like, oh well, we're gonna use Unity, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's a hard no.
Yeah, that's a hard no thanks. No thanks. Like Jesus. Like and
Yeah.
Unity had its pros. It worked well on mobile. That's why a lot of mobile games use Unity. Like the MiHoYo family of fucking games.
Yeah, the Hoyoverse games.
Yeah, all those damn games. Like they use those. Pokemon Go. Again, one of the biggest mobile games of all time. Marvel Snap, a huge card-based mobile game.
Yeah. I mean, again, words cannot express just how utterly terrible this is for everybody. Byron put it pretty well. I think we are going to see a mass migration to developers using Unreal and Godot, as well as all these other studios. But the real tragedy is the amount of people who have studied and learned how to make games in Unity software.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they're gonna have to be retrained, whether they're like a solo developer at a small indie team, at a bigger like AA team, or even at the AAA level.
Yeah, basically for a lot of people, this kind of like training that they've had, they're gonna have to toss it all in the trash. Like,
Well,
it's
not all of
terrible.
it, but quite a chunk of it will definitely be tossed in the trash, and it'll cost indie studios, it'll cost single developer, it'll cost game studios like thousands upon thousands of dollars to retrain people in either your own engine if you're a AAA company, or on some other engine like Unreal or Godot if you're at like a AA or an indie studio. Or yourself. It's going to cost yourself time for that. And heartache. And potentially money. So it's such a shitty situation all around with Unity. And we obviously want Unity to get better because we want multiple engines to be out there for people to be able to use to make great
We need
games.
competition.
Competition,
Like,
exactly.
again, outside of Unity, the biggest main 3D engine developer is Unreal.
Yeah.
And if Unity tanks, and suddenly Unreal has a monopoly on the market for third-party developers that don't have their own engines internally.
Yeah, because like a lot of companies do have their own engines. Obviously, the big three have their own. Companies like Activision, Namco, Capcom,
Sega,
Square. Well, Square used to.
not anymore.
Yeah, Square
the Luminous
used to. R.I.P. the Luminous engine. But yeah, some of these bigger companies, they'll be fine because either they don't use Unity that much, or they have their own engine, or they just use Unreal.
Yeah.
But this is gonna have some potential adverse effects on the industry, because it's like, okay, if Unreal are gonna charge this, even though like your game may not get $200,000 made or 200,000 downloads, like, why would you learn on this engine for future stuff if a lot of these bigger indie studios, these AA publishers, even the AAA, are not going to use Unity? Like, at that point, like, what's the fucking point, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, some of the smaller indie studios, they may not be making $200,000 a year, or may not get 200,000 installs a year or lifetime. But it's still like, why would you develop in an engine that a lot of people aren't using because of shit like this? You know?
Yeah.
God. And it's
The whole thing is just horrible.
Yeah.
Like I said, worst news of the year so far.
Yeah, and it's fucking like in the trends on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It's
number 2 right now.
It's the number 2 trend in
and climbing.
insanity. But yeah, we wanted to get this out, get you the breaking news, get you all the info that's currently out there right now. Some of the thoughts, some of our thoughts, some of the indie developers' thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I felt like this was a story that definitely needed to be broken, because I feel like this is going to be one of those things where people talk about for a day or two and then get swept under the rug. This is really important shit, people. If you pay attention to absolutely nothing else we cover on this channel, please pay attention to this. But hey, Byron, there's a silver lining in this.
What's the silver lining?
that Holiday Silk Song is gonna have to fucking release before next year.
God,
If they don't want to get
God-
charged off the ass
God
for
damn
all the
it! God damn it, Slade.
The more likely scenarios, they announced that it gets delayed another 5 years so they can remake the game in another engine.
Oh, jeez, I feel like it's too deep in. Oh, I feel like it's too deep in. But look, maybe because of all the pressure that a lot of these companies, and look, I mentioned a couple of big companies that have games made in there. Hell, Marvel Snap, like I mentioned earlier, that's a Unity game, and that's part of the House of Mouse. You don't fuck with the mouse. You do not, in any way, shape, or form. But I am very curious what will happen with this entire situation. Maybe some of these changes will get rolled back, which would be great for all parties involved. But we can hope. We can have a little bit of hope, even though the CEO used to work at EA and called developers fucking idiots last year. Oh, yeah, God. Like we mentioned earlier, Game Pass. PlayStation Plus, like we mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, with some indie studios already being affected by lower deals. Like, this is on top of that. This whole thing of like demos and Game Pass, it's hurting them as well. So it's a shit time to be an indie developer, even though it's been a great year in gaming.
Yeah. That's going to be everything for our breaking news episode. Byron and I will keep you all posted as we hear more information. Hopefully, within the next 24 hours, we'll put out another episode hearing that they've rolled back these horrific changes. But I'm not holding my breath, Brian. I'm not holding my breath at all.
If not in like 24 hours, probably on the regularly scheduled Sunday episode, we'll have updates for you on any new updates on the Unity situation. But this has been Byron.
And this has been Slade.
And dear God, hope y'all have a good day, good night, and goodbye.